I'm Richard Dunkerley, Director of Alternatives, and today I'm speaking with Mark Matousek. Mark is an author and a writing coach, a writing teacher, and he's going to be leading a workshop for alternatives on Sunday, the 7th of June, called Writing to Awaken. Mark, good to be talking to you.
Hey, good to talk to you, Richard.
Great. Mark, can you tell me a bit about your background and how you became an author? What propelled you into writing as a career?
Well, I started when I was a very young boy to write, and I grew up in a house where there was a lot of confusion and a lot of unanswered questions. So writing for me, exploring questions that I wasn't getting any guidance on in my family. Things about who we are, what we're doing here, why people are suffering, all those sorts of questions. I started exploring for myself in a journal. I was just very young, and that led me to a career as an editor and a journalist, and eventually a memoirist. But the same motivation was there throughout, which was to figure out who I am and life means, and so that's the kind of work that I do with students as well. It's self-inquiry and using writing as a path of self-realization.
Mm-hmm. So it was very much you were kind of on a sort of spiritual quest, really, in a way, from quite an early age.
I was. I mean, looking back, I used to just think I was strange, and why was I sort of haunted by all these questions? And then when I got into my 20s, I realized that there was a name for people like me, which was a seeker.
Uh-huh.
And I realized there was a whole population of people like me who were driven by this of insecurities and dissatisfaction with surface responses to things and the kind of universal questions that we all ask. So it was great. It was like, for me, it was like finding my tribe, my people.
Fantastic. And I noticed in your book, When You're Falling, Dive, it's very much about using pain to transform your life. And I guess many of us come into sort of spiritual searching through pain, and I know I did, with pain of a breakup of a relationship. Is that quite a common thing for you that you see with people?
Well, yes. I mean, we all suffer, and we all do experiences of loss and confusion and insecurity and impermanence. So we all struggle with pain at various levels of disappointment and confusion. So I find that people who come to me as a teacher are looking for a way through the darkness in their lives, whatever that darkness looks like. And in that, there is a lot of energy. There are many infinite gifts to be gained. I was quote, in a dark time, the eye begins to see. And that has been my experience, and it's the experience of people who work with me. That by exploring our pain and by exploring the parts of ourselves the shadow that we don't necessarily want to look at, we become whole human beings. We gain access to aspects of ourselves that we may not want to look at, but which actually strengthen and empower us in our lives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I guess it's very much about accepting the pain and aiming that the painful period will end. I mean, I guess at the time it's not so comfortable, is it? Accepting the pain and in a way blessing the pain.
No, it's not comfortable at all. But part of this work is really getting more comfortable with the discomfort of living in the truth,
right,
which includes the things that we don't want to look at. It's not about wallowing in pain. It's acknowledging what's there and seeing what can I do with this. What is this here to teach me? And what does it show about myself that experience could have taught me? Thomas More, I spoke to Thomas More a few weeks ago, and that grief, there are things that you learn in grief that you can't learn in any other way. So while one might not choose in grief, the wisdom that comes from that is undeniable. So it's just about embracing what is and learning to to bless the totality of our experience instead of fearing the pain, which is what it gives it control over us, and then it becomes dominant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one of the stories I liked in that book was your story of Ramdas and working with Ramdas after his stroke. And he was an absolute example of somebody who just accepted what was happening to him and just carried on. And yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, well, Ramdas realized when he came to the end, there was no bright light. There was no sort of ultimate, liberation, and he realized he had a lot more work to do. And what he said to me that was so moving is that after so many years of taking care of other people, it wasn't until he allowed himself to be cared for that he actually started to break through the last remnants of his pride and his ego that were holding him back in his life. So he's now actually doing better than he's ever done. I mean, he outlived all the odds. He was only supposed to, he had a 10% chance of survival, and now he's living in Maui and swimming every day and still teaching. It's extraordinary.
Wow, wow. He spoke several times at Alternatives many years ago, and he was a very seminal figure at that time, I guess for many of us.
Yes, yes. And what I like about Ramdas is he's never pretended to be better than he is. He's always presented himself as a work in progress, and had a sense of humor about himself. I like the transparency of him.
Yeah, definitely. Who would you say have been you've worked with many teachers, who would you say have been the three greatest teachers in your life?
My greatest teachers, it's a funny question because there are teachers on different levels.
Right, yeah.
I'd say the greatest non-verbal master I've worked with is a woman named Mother Mira, who lives in Germany, who's actually the most powerful presence I've ever been with in terms of direct spiritual transmission. As far as teachers who talk, I've learned so much from Sogyal Rinpoche, who I worked on a book with many years ago, and I've learned a lot from Byron Katie, who's really a terrific teacher.
Right, yeah.
And I love Adyashanti and Eckhart Tolle. Those are sort of my top 5 mentor guides as a on my own path.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. And I see from your website, you say the essence of your philosophy is that when you tell the truth, your story changes, and when your story changes, your life is transformed.
It's exactly that has been my experience. As a seeker, as a writer, and as a teacher. That as I've learned to, we talk about telling the truth as if it were a common occurrence. But in fact, we almost never tell the whole truth.
Right. And
that's what this kind of writing does. It gives us the opportunity to bear it all in a shameless, in a shameless way that, lets us see what isn't. And all truth, your story about your life obviously shifts. And when your story shifts, the way you live also changes, and you realize that your life is a work of fiction, and that you're the author of that fiction, and that you're rewriting yourself and your version of reality all the time.
So I guess
that's what's fascinating about doing this kind of writing. Is it has such a transformative effect on people. I've made it after a workshop that they learned more themselves in one day than they did in a year in therapy.
Wow.
Because they were just asking themselves questions that we're not often encouraged to ask. Where are you to yourself in your life? The secrets in your life. Where are you holding? What are you afraid of? Those kinds of universal questions, when you write for it, can yield amazing results.
And I guess getting it down on the page means there's a certain separation from it means you're not quite so involved with it, does it?
Exactly. I mean, you get your subjective experience becomes object when you put it up. And then you can look at it and say, gosh, is that really what I think? Or is that really what's going on inside my head?
Yeah.
It can be a real shock. I mean, and that's when the insight happens. After you've written it and you reread what you've written, that's when the transformation happens. It's not enough to just kind of skew on the page and then put it away.
Right. Yeah.
That's journal writing. That's a different thing, and that's not. It doesn't have quite the same impact as transformational writing with self-inquiry.
I very much like the last sentence of your description for the workshop, which says, "When we learn to tell the whole truth about our own soul's odyssey, we come to understand the mythic dimension of our life." I thought it was absolutely wonderful.
It's true. I mean, it is true. I mean, we realize we're all on the same journey. I mean, we're between iterations of the same story. You know, we're all pilgrims on a path of whatever kind we find ourselves on. But the universals are the same and across cultures, and they go across the details of biography. That's what I love about writing memoir. Someone said to me when they're reading about themselves, not you. And that liberated me, and I realized, memoir writers are doing the work for other people, so that other people can take that journey with them and have insight into their own lives. So that's what I meant by the mythic dimension of our experience. There are stations on the pilgrim, on the journey of self-awareness that we all pass through in our own way.
Well, it sounds actually a fantastic workshop, Mark, and it's for anyone. It's for anyone who writes or doesn't write, and anyone who just really wants to learn more about themselves and their personal spiritual development.
Yes, you broke up a bit, but I think is it for anyone who wants to just learn about themselves? And the answer is yes. It's a workshop for writers and non-writers. I have professional writers who come and folks who have never written a word. It's not a workshop about becoming a better writer. It's a workshop about telling the truth. It's a workshop about bringing your sincere desire to discover, to explore. That's all people need. They don't need any skill as a writer per se.
Right.
It's coming with the intention to learn and to tell the truth and to change.
Yes, great. Okay, Mark, well, fantastic. Well, that workshop, Writing to Awaken, is on Sunday, 10th of June, with Mark Matousek, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Mark, today. Thank you very much. We look forward to the workshop.
Richard, good to talk to you.
Great, thank you.